I got involved with CBST in the project actually in 2007. We were approached by the synagogue. And around 3 years ago, we found the space on 30th Street in an amazing building designed by Cassell. It has really beautiful terracotta and stonework on the building, and it actually has Assyrian references, oddly enough, which in some ways makes sense for a synagogue. And one of the things that attracted to us is the beauty of the ground floor space, and that we really had 50 feet on the street of storefront with this beautiful historic detail. Rabbis both talk about CBST being radically traditional, and so how do you reinterpret Judaism for an LGBT community, and how do you make it meaningful within the traditions? And so the historic quality of the building really spoke to that. As we were designing the space, one of the things that really started to transform it into a space that really was felt more like CBST is also we started to make it so all the pews in the space was curvilinear and sort of wrapped around, so the congregation wrapped around the bima in a way that everyone could have eye contact with the rabbis or whoever's up on the bima, and everyone felt close. And then we had a mezzanine that also wrapped around, so again, really trying to create a sense of intimacy that I think is so important. At the same time, trying to create a space that, you know, a sanctuary is just that, a place where you can be sort of meditative and contemplative about Judaism. In the end, you want to make something that when people are in the sanctuary for the 20th time or the 100th time and they go over and over again, there's other things that they discover, or that's always changing, that's not a static space. And then, of course, CBST, the services, music is such an important part of what CBST is. And so we also work really closely with acousticians to make sure, can we design a space that's just going to be fantastic for music? You want to get goosebumps. Have this sort of very light 50-foot wide wall with this bima in the center. Imagine that the chorus will be standing on one side with the piano, and of course in the center of that is the ark, you know, the spiritual center and the heart of the synagogue. We've never designed an ark before, and in fact, and in some ways, again, as we were starting to engage this and realize that in order to while we know how to make beautiful spaces, in order to make something that really is layered with meaning, for CBST, we reached out to an old acquaintance of mine, someone I'd worked with before, Mark Robbins.
Just the kind of challenge that I'd want to think about, how not only to make something that reflects sort of such deep cultural things like faith, religion, identity, but to translate those for a broad audience.
So the ark, well, fundamentally, the most basic thing, I think it's going to be beautiful. And I think beauty is important.
When you come in and see the surface of the ark, it's white, mostly opaque. You might see some indication of a pattern behind it, but it's really when that light source becomes strong behind the surface that you're then able to read the text, and that's really where it becomes alive.
Imagine a large ark, almost a large square of white, with in front of it hanging roughly 600 or 700 abstract leaves that can just move slightly.
It would be hung where you see this little hole. This would be hung as if they were earrings, or I always refer to these as sequins. They're like a huge sequined dress. These kind of spectacular sequins that would shimmer on the surface, but then there'd be these cuts which suggest the veins of the leaf and also break up the shadow, those rainbow shadows that are cast onto the leaves. It'll create this kind of thick surface, almost like the blur that you see when the shadows of leaves from a tree are cast on the ground and the sun moves and you see this changing pattern of light.
It's something unlike something I've ever seen before.
These will be done for the entry to the building out of bronze. You'll grab the door like this, and You know, clearly this is where it's attached to the door, and then when you take off your hand, you'll see the impression, so that each time you grab a door handle, especially to the sanctuary, you'll have this experience of a text that gets left on your hand.
It's been, you know, really fruitful collaboration in the same way that it's been like an amazing collaboration with CBST, that you always want these collaborations where ideas get pushed further and better. We are at a place that I'm so excited that we can finally build this thing, and while the design is very far along, there's always hundreds of small decisions that happen during the construction process. And there'll be roughly seven months of construction. I expect by around the high holidays that you'll be either done or just in there or getting ready to move in.
And that, to me, is the amazing thing about art and space and architecture, is we live with it and it becomes part of who we are.
The wonderful thing about working for CBST is you're designing something that's so meaningful for the community, and that the community is amazing unto itself. However you want to, you know, to design a permanent home after 40 years is a really great honor.
I like the notion of unexpected consequences, how this thing actually will become part of somebody's history.
It's a vision that comes from ideas of Judaism that relate to the CBST community, and then reinterpret it and put it back out there.